The Giants, it felt exactly the same. And I know it's the same coach, and I know it's the same GM, and I know it's the same owner, and I know it's the same offensive and defensive coordinators, but it felt new. New quarterback, the Daniel Jones era is over, and we'll get into his playing with the Colts. But it felt like all the optimism, and I'll raise my hand, bought into it. Completely bought into it. And it makes me laugh because I got a bunch of people after the game looking to, get me for my 2-0 prediction for the New York Giants and calling me this blind homer, and it's embarrassing. Picking the Giants to win the first 2 games of this year might be the first nice thing I've said about them in 4 years. I have finally bought into some optimism around this team. I have been doom and gloom about the New York Giants forever. And this year felt different. I believe they've had 2 good quality drafts in a row. I believe in the skill players of this team. I believe the defense has a chance to have a pass rush that can be legitimate. I believe they've answered some questions in the defensive backfield. I had optimism heading into this game. Was it pie in the sky to think they could win both of them? Was it a bit too much hubris to think they could beat the Washington Commanders on the road week 1? Maybe, but I expected to watch a different brand of football. And when you watch when I tell you this was typical Giants' first game of the year, it was identical. Like my cousin Vinny, identical. Different quarterback, identical. As we saw the same crap, the offensive line got completely bowled over, and I know there's no Andrew Thomas, and I'm hoping that will help this offensive line, but the interior of the offensive line stinks too. It's not just the tackle. It's not just James Hudson who wasn't very good. Nobody was good. John Michael Schmitz now has been the center of this team for 3 years. He's awful. And again, we see a quarterback who can't handle the pressure. He made 1 throw under pressure where he took an enormous hit and just threw the ball up in the air. And Neighbors was able to come down with it. Other than that, he looks skittish. We've been saying the quarterback looks skittish since the end of Eli Manning's career. He looked skittish. He didn't know he couldn't get the ball out. They couldn't go down the field. There was no offense. And then, what else is new? Terrible in the red zone. Terrible. To watch this team operate in the red zone, get the benefit of a penalty, run, 7 or 8 plays down there to get 1 stinking yard, and they're throwing, garbage junk plays trying to hit the tackle in the end zone. They have Malik Neighbors, and they're throwing it to tackles. Or they couldn't, I don't even know if they did throw it to a tackle. They attempted. Couldn't even do that. They couldn't run the ball to save their lives. The offense looked exactly the same. That's what was so annoying for me. It wasn't even a new wrinkle to how they play. There wasn't an ounce of difference. An ounce. And it's not just Daniel Jones, and it's not just the change in quarterback. Everything. They haven't scored a touchdown in the last 3 openers of the season. That hasn't been done since the Lions in the early 40s. To watch this team operate was mind-numbing. And you know what? Defense wasn't much better. I know they held Jaden Daniels down to 21 points. I understand that they kept him in the game, and this game was a lot of the game was 14-3 and 14-6, and the defense bent but not break nonsense. What else is new? Like, how many times big plays on 3rd and long get converted? How many times is the middle of the field wide open? How many times? And I just heard Lori saying it, I was listening. She's right. Jaden Daniels didn't play that well. His maneuverability inside the pocket is excellent. His ability to get outside the pocket. They were talking about it the entire broadcast. There he goes, running right. There he goes, running right. There he goes, running right. Like, he's still able to make plays when plays break down, but he missed several big-time throws. Obviously, they cost themselves 3 points at the end of the half with the intentional grounding instead of just kicking the field goal. He throws it out of bounds around nobody, 10-second runoff. They don't come away with points there when they're right in the goal line. Like, Washington didn't play that well. Their defensive front played well. And I'd like to say the defensive front is really good. They've put money and picks in it, and it should be good. But it's hard to not just say they wiped the floor with the same crappy offensive line the New York Giants have been throwing out there forever. It was identical. Everything about this game screamed everything that's been wrong with this franchise for the last decade. I was hoping for, even if they lost the game, right? Another game without a touchdown, another game where Malik Neighbors is annoyed on the sidelines, another game where they can't execute inside the red zone, like another game where they give up 3rd and longs, another game where tight ends are scoring touchdowns, another game where the middle of the field is wide open, another game. Another giant debacle yet again. And it's our fault for being optimistic. Now, look, I'm also not going to go crazy where now you have to start Jackson Dart. Now you have to get rid of Russell Wilson. Now the season's over already. I'm not going to go there because, let's be honest, I believe in what I believed for the last month. I still do think the roster is better. I still do think they can have a good defensive pass rush. I still do think that the defensive backfield should be better. I still think that this wide receiving core should be better. I still think they should have some semblance of a run game with Tracy and Scatterboo. I still think those things. And, as frustrating as this game was, and look, again, next week now you're going into a Dallas team that's going to have the extra couple of days off of playing Thursday. They just played the Eagles really well. That their passing attack, obviously, if not for a couple of drops from Lamb, they very well could have beaten the Eagles. This is going to be a very difficult game, number 2. And if they go 0-2 and come home to the Chiefs 0-3, and there goes the season. And here we are again. But about playing Jackson Dart, it's not necessarily, there's a plan for Jackson Dart's development. This was never about, I thought they had a chance to go 2-0. I thought they had a chance to be a better team than people suspected. I didn't necessarily think they were going to be a playoff team, and even if they were, they're not competing for anything. This wasn't about Russell Wilson's going to come in and transform them into a playoff team. This is about Russell Wilson trying to win some games, trying to play competent football, while developing a young quarterback, as we've seen many quarterbacks be thrusted right into it and not be successful, a chance to coach him up. And I don't want to break that just because we saw another miserable Giants game. I'm not ready to just suddenly throw everything out, throw every plan out. I can't give up on the idea of what they thought was best for this quarterback just because Russell Wilson didn't play well. Now, they made him quarterback too. I heard Laurie also talking about maybe Jameis Winston. I don't know what Jameis Winston does. But again, when you see this game and you ask yourself, did the Giants show up? And we talk about the coach and getting up for these games. Clearly 40-0 against the Cowboys a couple years ago didn't show up. Do I think the Giants didn't show up today? Do I think the energy level wasn't there? Do I think they were ill-prepared? I think in the red zone they looked ill-prepared. But I think, yet again, some of the same things we see over and over again that hurt this team. The offensive line could not block, and it made it impossible to have a functioning offense. It made it impossible to have a functioning offense because Russell Wilson, no misconception about what Russell Wilson is. Russell Wilson is still someone who can throw the ball down the field. Russell Wilson is still someone who, might be able to get it out of his hands a little bit quicker and a little bit more down the field than what we've seen in previous years from Daniel Jones. But he's not someone at this point in his career that can just take the team on his shoulders and carry them past all of their deficiencies. That's not who Russell Wilson is. It's not who he's going to be at this age and this point of his career. And to give him that offensive line where early on in the game, he had zero time to throw. They couldn't get a run game going. Like, you've got to give him a complementary offense. And I thought they were going to be able to do it this year. And as of week 1, we saw the same crap. It was an embarrassing performance. We heard so much all week. They looked so good in spring, in preseason, rather. Even when Russell Wilson, it wasn't just about Jackson Dart. The entire team looked better in preseason. And to see the same thing we have seen, they looked exactly the same, and it's an impossible watch. It's an impossible watch. And I don't know what the answer is, because it's hard to think that Andrew Thomas comes in and just fixes this offensive line. I mean, the interior, Runyon didn't play well. John Michael Schmitz, forget about it. He's been awful at the center position. Like, Andrew Thomas is going to come in and help them. There's no doubt, whether he plays in week 2 or week 3, whenever it does, he's going to come in and help them. But to see another game where Neighbors doesn't get the ball nearly enough, they can't get the ball down the field, and then inside the red zone with an opportunity to make that a game. The game plan, the game call, everything about it, from the play calling to the execution, was just I mean, it's beyond dreadful. And to have this season start that way, it's very disheartening. It's, as a Giants fan who had some expectations, who had some thoughts that this team was moving in a different direction, who thought this roster was better than it's been the last couple of years, who thought Russell Wilson could manage inside this offense, who thought that this coach could come up with a game plan for Russell Wilson to manage this offense. None of those looked like they were anywhere near going in the right direction. And the Washington Commanders absolutely laid the wood. And now the Giants are staring at another dead season where, look, and this is where, the development of Jackson Dart, it's not about necessarily winning these games, but they've made him the second string quarterback already. I think that eliminates Jameis Winston from the conversation. And then it just becomes, when do you decide that the best quarterback in the room is Jackson Dart? Now, the coach in the postgame didn't commit to Russell Wilson being the starter next week. I'd be shocked if they make that move already, because it looks like, if you make that move already, if you decide to abandon ship on the plan you had to develop this kid off of one game, like, you have to have some convictions in your decisions. You can't make a decision for this season, get beat up in one game, and suddenly throw everything out the window. You look like incompetent fools. You look like incompetent fools. There was a plan for this, and you're so ill-prepared, and one loss tells you all you need to know, that you have to change directions in what you felt was best for the quarterback you drafted in the first round, traded up for, that you're hanging your hat on, that you're going to develop to save your job. We're going to abandon ship on this 1 week in. I don't know if there are any answers for the New York Giants. I don't think Jackson Dart starting next week helps. I don't know if Andrew Thomas coming back helps. I'm not sure what the answer is for this franchise that cannot find its way, but it found its way right back to being the same team we've seen the last handful of years, week 1. A boring, lifeless, unimaginative team that can't get the ball down the field, can't score when it gets close, and can't make it stop on 3rd and long. It's been the same story for the last decade. Again, we've been having this conversation since the end of Eli Manning's career. This isn't just Brian Dable. I mean, this was all of the juice, all of the buzz, all of the excitement, all of the good feelings around this franchise that I felt was warranted over since really the draft, has been completely evaporated. And now everyone expects, myself included, them to roll into Dallas and get whipped, come home to Kansas City and get whipped, and waiting for when they start Jackson Dart because the season's over. That's what everybody is waiting for, and that's probably what we'll get.